Welcome to the Casual Birder podcast. I'm Susie Buttress. As a casual birder, I take pleasure in watching the wild birds around me, wherever I am. In my show, I share the joy of birding. I tell you about the birds I've seen, speak with experts and enthusiasts, go on bird outings, and I share stories from birders around the world. At the beginning of August, I spent a weekend away in Wiltshire with my husband John. Birding was the focus. We had a tour booked on the Saturday morning with the Great Bustards group, hoping to see this rare species that has been reintroduced, having become extinct in England during the Victorian era. For the remainder of the weekend, we visited a couple of different reserves in Wiltshire and Hampshire, and ended up on Sunday at a site near the South Downs Way, where we were excited to find a couple of new species for the year. We share our experiences in the following recording, which was made while standing at the edge of a farm field as the sun was starting to go down on the Sunday evening. It's Sunday evening. We're standing at the edge of a field, looking out over golden wheat, and hearing the odd bird in the background. It's been an extremely quiet day bird-wise. Behind us, the sun is starting to set, but we've got some sun dogs, which are when ice crystals provide a reflection of the sun, and it's equidistance from the sun. Quite impressive to see. Anyway, we've been away for a birding weekend down in Wiltshire, and we're on our way home. But on Thursday night, John came out to try to find a quail that he'd seen reported.
So this is a spot about 25 minutes from home near Winchester called Gander Down, and there'd been a few reports of people seeing or hearing common quail. So Thursday evening after work, because it's quite close to home, I popped out in the off chance that I might be able to see or hear it. The weather forecast wasn't brilliant. It was pouring with rain most of the drive to Gander Down. And when I arrived, I had to sit in the car for 10 minutes or so to wait for the rain to ease off. When the rain did ease off, I was lucky enough within a few seconds to hear a common quail singing, doing its familiar wet my lips song. So yeah, that was tremendous.
So it was a good start to the weekend. I mean, you had to work on Friday, but Friday night we headed on down to Wiltshire. We had booked a trip on Salisbury Plain on Saturday morning to see Great Bustards. So Great Bustards are a bird that are native to the UK, but are extremely rare to see. In fact, I think they were eradicated from the UK through hunting and habitat loss. And the guy that took us out, David Waters, has been working for the last 25 years to reintroduce Great Bustards. And it's a bit of a success story, I have to say. We arrived at the village hall where we were meeting the other members of the group that were going out with David, and piled into his Land Rover and was taken off to some tracks along Salisbury Plain. He has special permission to, when the army aren't using the area for live firing, he's able to access some of the tracks that aren't available to the general public. First of all, he took us into a room in the village hall where there are some specimens of Great Bustards that have been stuffed. These are old specimens or specimens that have died natural causes and are being used as education materials. And he gave us a history of the Great Bustard in the UK. It's a really, really big bird, really big. It's a grassland or farmland bird. It's found in other areas in Europe, but in the UK it's extremely rare.
Yeah, really interesting to find out a little bit more about bustards, because there are a few species around the world, aren't there? He mentioned the Cory bustard in southern Africa, I think it is. But the species we were hoping to see, the one that he'd been working so hard to reintroduce, was the Great Bustard, which I think he said is the heaviest flying bird in the world.
Yeah, and I was reading up about this, and there are birds that are potentially bigger, but they don't have the same mass as Great Bustards. So condors, swans, geese potentially have similar wingspans, or, well, condors have bigger wingspans, but they're much lighter birds. One of the things he mentioned, he showed us a skeletised foot of a bustard and showed us that it only has 3 toes and they all point forward, and it has no backward facing toe like the passerines, the perching birds, and it appears never to have had one. There's not even a vestigial back toe, so it can't perch. It can only stand on the ground, so it's a non-perching bird. He then took us out in the Land Rover.
They started off as tarmacked roads and then became, was that a skylark? It may have been a skylark. Oh, it's perched. Oh, it's a yellowhammer. Yeah, can you see it?
Yeah. So yellowhammer just flew by. And there's a blue tit in the background somewhere.
Yeah, so they were tarmacked roads to begin with, weren't they? And then deteriorated into gravel tracks, but pretty good, and certainly no problem for the Land Rover that David was driving.
And he went very slowly, which was great because
Yes.
it's tricky sitting in the back. We stopped by an enormous manure pile on a farm because it was an area where he had seen Great Bustards previously in the farm fields. And lo and behold, we saw some heads poking out from the crops.
I think initially when he stopped,
We saw 3 heads.
we saw 2 or 3 heads. They
Oh,
were
and in
a
the
very,
distance.
very long way off. And at that point I was thinking, oh, well, we can say we've seen Great Bustards, but it would have been nice to see them a bit closer. But that was okay because we got much, much closer to them.
Yes, as we scanned the field, the other people pointed out there were heads popping up from the crops very close by, probably a couple of 100 feet away.
Yeah.
But for a large bird, it meant that we had good views. So we'd obviously stopped, we got the scopes out, we were having a look, and a van went along the track, and it must have spooked the birds somehow because they all stood up and we could suddenly see them, because before they had all been sitting down with just their heads over the crops, and then they all stood up, and so the crops only came up to sort of their breast. Didn't it?
Yeah.
So that was brilliant, and we got to see that there were potentially 12, I think.
I think I counted 12. Yeah.
Close by us, and then there were another couple in the distance.
And I never expected to see that many.
Yeah, so we had 12, I think he said there were 12 males next to us, and then a couple of females further off in the distance. One of the things David pointed out about Great Bustards is that there's a sexual dimorphism in regards to the size. So the Great Bustard male is a very large bird, and the female is much smaller. He didn't go into the mechanics of mating, but doesn't look terribly comfortable for the female. But so these other birds that were further off in the distance were females, so they were smaller. But it was fascinating. So even while we were watching them in the field and oohing and ahhing and gasping with amazement that they were so close to us, David was telling us lots more about the history, about reintroduction programs elsewhere, and also about how they have intervened. So there had been some attempts previously to raise Great Bustards in captivity, but it hadn't been successful. And so one of the things they do now, they've got a licence to remove eggs that they find on nests and incubate those in a facility where once the young are old enough, they're reintroduced to different areas. And they've got 4 different sites that they are reintroducing to in Wiltshire and Dorset, I think. And so far it has been incredibly successful. So that's fantastic news. But anyway, that was a really interesting trip, wasn't it? Well worth going on. And if you want to find out more about that, look up the Great Bustard group online. I'll put the link in the episode notes. But it's absolutely fascinating and amazing to see. We did add Great Bustard to our UK list. It has accepted it on eBird. It does have it down as provisional.
They are breeding on Salisbury Plain now, aren't they? But I think that's the only place in the UK where they breed.
Yeah. Previously, before they were eradicated, they were found in quite a lot of counties.
Yeah, he mentioned the
Norfolk,
north of England,
Cambridgeshire.
Yorkshire even, I think he said.
Yeah, but not now. And they're on the coat of arms for places like Cambridgeshire and Wiltshire. So anyway, following that, we went for a drive along some more of the tracks that are open to the public on Salisbury Plain in the low hope of finding Grey Partridge. It's really the wrong time of year to be able to see anything like that because the crops are high and they'll be hidden if they are indeed there.
We didn't have any luck with the grey partridge, but
Is that red-legged partridge?
sounds like it, yeah.
We've just got some red-legged partridges starting to
I knew I
walk.
recognised it.
Yeah, so we used to have a couple of red-legged partridges that visited the garden, so we became familiar with their call there.
So no grey partridges yesterday, but I think we did identify some good tracks that in the winter months, when the grass and the crops are lower, will return and hopefully stand a much better chance of seeing and hearing grey partridges.
Yeah. So in the afternoon, we stopped off at a place called Langford Lakes, a wildlife trust reserve, Wiltshire Wildlife Trust, and spent the afternoon there. And that was really lovely, wasn't it? We got there just as it was closing, but luckily the reserve is open 24 hours. But it was a gorgeous evening. It was still quite a hot day, and we wandered through the reserve. So you go past lots of lakes, and then there's probably in a wetter time of year, there's a good sort of wetland bit you can look over, and then there's about 5 hides. There's a lot of hides on the reserve, but we made our way all the way through to the East Cliff Lake. You can hear a raven in the background, yeah, and sat in that hide for absolutely ages. We got there and there were hundreds of Canada geese. I'm not kidding. It was full of Canada geese in the lake in front of us. But there were also some little egrets, a great white egret, a couple of grey herons. We had 4 green sandpipers, some lapwings. So
we eventually spotted a common snipe.
But there was a lot of drama going on. So most of the birds were just kind of sitting around preening, having a doze. There was some honking going on from the Canada geese. The lapwings were, I think some of them were quite juvenile, so they were kind of testing their powers against other lapwings. So there was a lot of lapwing calls going on and a little bit of challenging of each other. But the most drama came from the grey heron and the great white egret. So the heron just was continually harassing the egret. They kept sort of stopping at different sides of the lake. And the minute, I was watching it, the minute the great white egret caught a fish, the heron would be straight after it and chasing it. At one point, it was quite noticeable, the grey heron took off this time to sort of chase another grey heron. And as it took off, all the Canada geese that had been sort of resting and snoozing suddenly sat up with alarm and raised all their necks. And as the heron flew over them quite low, it was like one of those crowd wave things. Each of them retracted their heads down and ducked as the heron went over and then brought it up again. And you could see this flow through all of the geese. That was quite amusing. But yeah, this grey heron would not let the great white egret alone. So lots and lots of video. And then my card ran out of space, so I couldn't take any more. So that was the end of the afternoon for me. Definitely a raven behind us.
Raven again,
Yeah. But anyway, it was quite late by that time, so we headed back to the hotel. So anyway, this morning, we left the hotel and headed to Martin Down on the way back. So that's just over the border from Wiltshire back into Hampshire. It's one of our big reserves, and it's well known for lots of things, not least in the early summer, turtle dove and corn buntings. Corn buntings are there year round, but the turtle doves come in, so that's amazing to have. Good to hear the raven behind us anyway. Is it being hassled by something?
That might be it. Yeah, there it is. You can see its beak open while it's calling.
Oh,
It's landed.
Just behind a branch.
Somehow it's invisible, but it did land.
It did land. Well, no doubt we'll hear it. So we went to Martin Down. We started off at there's 2... I guess that's someone upset at the raven being next to it. I'm guessing that raven won't be sitting there for long. The crows will probably encourage it to move on. So we went to Martin Down. We went to the upper car park first and had a walk there. And it was quite a nice day, a little bit breezy, but it was silent. There was hardly any bird calls or songs at all. Now, it is the time of year when things do go quiet. We saw some yellowhammers. We were hoping for corn bunting.
We were hearing bullfinches.
Oh yeah, that's right, straight away. I'm having a thing with bullfinches this weekend. On Friday, before we left, while I was working, I kept hearing one outside and I kept rushing to the window hoping to see one and didn't. And we don't have bullfinches very often nowadays. And about 6 times I ran to the window at different points of the day hoping to see a bullfinch, and I didn't. And then I heard one a couple of times on Saturday when we were at Langford Lakes, didn't see one. And so I got out of the car and we could hear this bullfinch. I was like, oh no, not again. But actually did manage to see them this time.
One of the reasons we had gone to Martin Down is that there had been a report of common quail at Martin Down several days ago. I don't think it had been reported in the last couple of days, but we hoped we might manage to hear it, but didn't have any luck.
Anyway, we drove down to the lower car park and went for a walk there as well. And we went for quite a long walk, saw some more yellowhammers.
I think it was quite a short walk, it just took us a very long time.
That's true. I think we walked something like half a mile in 100 minutes or something. But it's just because, every tiny little possible, you'd just be standing and listening, hoping to find, we would see some birds. We did see some nice linnets.
At the right time of year, the lower car park at Martin Down is really good for corn bunting, but we didn't have any luck this time.
I think this time of year it's better for butterflies. There are birds around, but they're just very hidden. Plenty of wood pigeons, should you want to see wood pigeons. But we did, at the end of the track, we came to a bank of trees, like a small woodland, and everything seemed to be there. If only we'd known, we would have gone straight there. The best bird we saw there, well, I saw the bullfinch there actually, was spotted flycatcher, which you saw, and there was at least 2.
Yeah.
So it's possibly a family group. There may have been 3.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting that, but that was great to see.
And then it started raining, which it had said it wasn't going to do today. It was a very muggy day and we were just in our T-shirts. So when the rain started, it was a very fine mist and it was quite pleasant, and it started getting heavier and heavier, but we were heading back to the car at that point. But we were due to go to Langford Lakes, one of our favourite local reserves, on the way home. There had been reports of ruddy shelduck there, so we thought that would be a good one to add to our year list. John is heading close to his 200 now. What are you on?
At that point, I was on 193.
I'm several birds behind that.
Not many,
but I'm about 186 now, I think. It was really late in the afternoon and they shut at 4:30. So we just spent a couple of hours in the Turnhide. Lots and lots and lots of Egyptian geese. I don't think I've ever seen so many Egyptian geese. I counted about 45.
And lots and lots of coot.
Oh yeah, there's always lots of coot there. A few great crested grebes, loads of herring gull, or potentially lesser backbacks in the background.
Some common terns that were still around.
Yeah, a couple of common terns, it was good to see those. And great cormorants.
And sand martins, or another great white egret.
Really off in the distance though, we had such superb views of it yesterday. No ruddy shelduck though.
I thought I'd seen a ruddy shelduck at one point, a sleeping bird next to an Egyptian goose. Stared at it for ages through the scope. And I'd convinced myself it had different colouring to the Egyptian goose, but when it eventually stood up, it was another Egyptian goose. So yeah, no luck with the ruddy shelduck.
Sounds like the crow thinks that's quite funny.
Yeah.
We spent a couple of hours there and we were going to go for a walk through the rest of the reserve. Actually, I was quite tired by that point.
We thought, because we'll be on the way home, we'll be driving past Winchester, shall we stop off at the place where I'd heard the common quail on Thursday evening, just in case, because it was only a few miles out of our way. So that's what brought us to Gander Down, close to Winchester.
Yeah, so we pulled up where John had parked the other day and heard his quail and opened the door with lots of expectation and didn't hear anything. Then we went for a little walk along a bit of the South Downs Way, which is what runs through the area where John had parked, but still no luck.
I saw some brown hare.
One of them was running extremely fast, as hares do, but because there wasn't much else happening, we decided we'd head on, because it is Sunday night and we have got to go to work tomorrow, so we need to unpack and everything. But as we got back to the car, another car pulled up, and this guy Graham started chatting to us, and turns out he's a HOS member as well. Graham told us that he had heard the quail in the field just the night before.
In fact, he'd seen it.
He showed us where this little cutout is that's sort of set back in the field, and this is where he'd seen the quail last night, in fact. So we thought we'd see if there's any chance of us seeing one. He carried on for his walk, and about 15 minutes later, we heard a quail right across the field. Just heard it. I think it just repeated its call twice.
Yeah.
And that was it. But we heard it, so it counts. We know what it sounds like, so it was okay. But while we were standing here, John looked around, because the wood pigeons had all clapped out of the tree. They'd all got out the tree, clapping their wings. And it looked like a black kite, which is most unusual. Now, I took some video, took some photos, and we need to go home and actually check that. So we've not put it down on any lists yet. But if so, that's mega for us.
Yeah, first black kite we'll have ever seen in the UK.
Yeah, and there have been reports over the last couple of days of black kites being found in various southern areas, Dorset and
Wiltshire.
Wiltshire as well.
Close to where we were yesterday.
So, you know, it is possible it could have been a black kite. It looked like a black kite, like what we've seen before in France and elsewhere. But we need to double check the video.
It was fairly close, wasn't it? Maybe 100 feet away.
But it literally just flew from behind us over a hedge, you know, in the air over the hedge.
Commotion with some crows and wood pigeons, so it looked that way. It really looked like a black kite.
It did, yeah.
It was a large, dark raptor. Seemed to have a forked tail, but not as forked as a red kite, which we're very familiar with now. Luckily,
John pointed it out really quickly, so I was able to get the camera on it and get some photos and video as it then carried on across the field and was gone, and we've not seen it again. So it probably took, 3-4 seconds, maybe 5 seconds in total of first spotting it for it to be flying over the field. So we were quite lucky that managed to get some evidence, if it is indeed a black kite, which we hope for. But as I say, we've not put it down. We want to go and have a look at the videos. So while we were standing here talking about the possible black kite, John said, "Look," and I was like, "Okay, what? Another black kite? What?" So I faced the same direction. I was looking all along the side of the hedge, thinking maybe there's a fox or something. And then really close to us, maybe about 20 feet away, a hare had come out of the hedge and wanted to run into the field. And it saw us, and we were just standing stock still watching it. And it started to come out, and it was like umming and ahhing whether it should. And it started to think, okay, I'll do it, but obviously then realised no, they are humans, I'm not going to chance this, even though if it had run we would have had no chance at catching it. But it was amazing. It's the closest I've ever been to a hare. It's starting to get quite cold now, the sun's setting. So in August I've managed to see 47 species for Wiltshire and 59 species for August. Oh, what's that?
That's a grey partridge.
Merlin is confirming there's a grey partridge in the field behind us. That's been another bird on my wants list.
Yeah, they're over there, look.
Okay, folks, we're just going to retrace her steps and see if we can get this grey partridge, because that was another target.
There were 3 of them.
So we tried to get here quite quickly to a gap in the hedge that we could look back into the field. And we've been scanning. We can see hares, and we've seen red-leg partridge behind us, but there's nothing near the hedge. However, we could hear them. Merlin confirmed the sound. John already knows the sound, so he pointed it out straight away. That's why he stopped me when I was speaking. As we were walking up this lane, which has got high hedgerows, we could hear them, but we couldn't see through the hedge. And now we've got to a gap in the hedge, we can't see them, which is a bit of a shame, because it would have been nice to see them just to have a proper confirmation of sighting. But I think the fact that we've heard the sound before, Merlin knows the sound, I think I'm going to have that as a herd. But we'll just stand here a little bit longer just to see whether we can see any movement, or indeed hear them again. It sounded like they were over the far side of the field when the last time we heard them, but there's a sort of hill in the field. It's
pretty incredible when we pulled up here, and it was so quiet and it seemed so unpromising. And now in this short stay here, you've potentially had 3 birds, which are first of year birds for you.
Yeah, and because the lighting's going now, because it's getting dark, I think we're probably going to have to call it a day, aren't we? Because it's quite late. But we will definitely return to this spot. On our way home, we discussed what we'd seen and heard. We were almost certain that we had seen a black kite. It just had the look of a kite, but with more brown and buff plumage, and the colouring under the wing looked kind of messy, as I had remembered from the black kites I saw in France last year. There had been several sightings of black kites in the preceding days in Dorset and Wiltshire, so it wasn't outside of the realm of possibility. I was very keen to review my photos and video to see if I could make a positive identification. Unfortunately, the photos were horribly underexposed and the video was inconclusive. It was obviously a bird of prey and did not look like a red kite, but despite researching online and looking in our ID guides, we could not find anything that matched our memory. I reached out to Keith Betton, chair of the Hampshire Ornithological Society, sending him my photos and video in the hopes he might be able to help. Keith also spoke with the Hampshire County Recorder, Martin Pitt, and they concluded it was probably a young marsh harrier. There had been a raptor in the area with unusual plumage, so that may have misled us. We were disappointed to miss out on an England tick for black kite, but we were incredibly happy with the common quail and grey partridge from that evening, and indeed the whole birding weekend. My year list total at the end of that weekend was 189 birds, which makes it possible that I might reach 200 bird species this year, which will be a new personal record for me. Links to all of the reserves mentioned in this episode can be found in the episode notes, along with that of the Great Bustard group and the Instagram account of Graham Snellgart, the very kind photographer who pointed out where we might find the quail. And I've included a link to my eBird trip report for the weekend. In this episode, John and I spoke primarily about 4 different species: the Great Bustard, Common Quail, Grey Partridge and Black Kite. In case you're unfamiliar with any of these species, I'll tell you a little bit about each of them. I've also included a description of the red-legged partridge, which we saw in the field behind us and which we see much more often than the grey partridge, particularly in southern England. The Great Bustard is an extremely large and heavy bird. Males stand up to 1.2 metres or 4 feet tall, have a wingspan of up to 2.7 metres or almost 9 feet, and can weigh up to 16 kilograms or 35 pounds. They are generally considered to be the world's heaviest flying bird. As I mentioned earlier, Great Bustards are sexually dimorphic. The females of the species are significantly shorter and lighter in weight, typically up to about 8 kilograms or 18 pounds. Their plumage is mostly buff and brown with bold white wing markings. Male birds develop distinctive long whisker-like feathers, known as moustaches, during the breeding season, and have very downy feathers. The male Great Bustard performs an elaborate courtship display at a lek. The males all congregate in open areas and puff out their chest, fan their tail, and display their white plumage and facial whiskers in an attempt to impress the watching females. Great Bustards are mostly silent outside of the breeding season. The Great Bustard is mainly terrestrial, spending most of its time walking and foraging on the ground. They have 3 toes, all forward-facing, meaning that they are incapable of gripping a branch to perch. However, they do fly, and generally at a low height, which makes them vulnerable to overhead power lines. They prefer open, treeless landscapes, such as grassland and farmland, and their main populations are in Europe and Central Asia. In the UK, the Great Bustard became extinct as a result of habitat loss and hunting, but the reintroduction programme run by the Great Bustard Group, based in the Salisbury Plain area of southern England, is working to re-establish a sustainable population of this impressive bird. Compared to some of the birds I'll be describing, female Great Bustards lay a very small number of eggs, typically only 1 to 3. Only the female incubates the eggs and cares for the chicks. The common quail is a small ground-dwelling bird, closely related to pheasants and partridges. It has a compact, rounded body with a short neck and tail. They can be up to 18 centimetres or 7 inches in length, with a wingspan of up to 35 centimetres or 14 inches, with females generally larger than males. Their standing height is between 12 to 15 centimetres, 5 to 6 inches, which, as you can imagine, makes them difficult to see in fields with crops. Plumage is primarily brown and buff, with black and white streaks, which gives excellent camouflage among grasses and crops. You're much more likely to hear a common quail than you are to see it, so it's useful to know what they sound like. They have a very distinctive repetitive 3-syllable call that goes whit, whit, whit. As an aid to remembering the call and its phrasing, many people describe it as the quail's wet my lips call. Even if you only catch a short burst of the common quail's call, it is utterly unmistakable. Wet my lips, wet my lips. The common quail is widely distributed across Europe, Western Asia and northwestern Africa, and it breeds throughout much of Europe, including large parts of the UK. It prefers open habitats such as grasslands, meadows and agricultural fields. Nests are shallow depressions scraped in the ground and lined with grass and leaves. A typical clutch contains up to 12 eggs. Common quails are highly migratory, with European populations undertaking impressive journeys, flying at night across the Mediterranean and Sahara to reach their wintering areas. In fact, the common quail is the only truly migratory galliform bird species in Europe. The grey partridge is a medium-sized, plump, ground-dwelling bird, measuring up to about 32 centimetres or 13 inches in length, and stands at about 30 centimetres or 12 inches in height. Both sexes are similar in appearance, though the females are generally slightly smaller. The plumage of the grey partridge is mostly grey and brown, with distinctive features including a chestnut-brown horseshoe-shaped patch on the belly, which is more noticeable in males, and orange-brown face and throat, and a grey chest. The grey partridge is native to Europe and Western Asia, but it has also been introduced to North America and New Zealand. Its preferred habitat is arable farmland, grasslands and heathlands. It favours open country with plenty of cover. It forms small flocks known as coveys, especially in the autumn and winter months. The females lay clutches of up to 20 to 22 eggs. In folklore, the grey partridge is sometimes associated with fertility and abundance, likely due to its unusually large clutch size. Because chicks are highly dependent on insect prey in their first few weeks, the presence of wildflower-rich margins and reduced pesticide can be important contributing factors for successful broods. The grey partridge has a slightly rasping cur-rick call, which is often likened to the sound of a knife being sharpened on a grindstone. They are non-migratory and remain in the same general area throughout the year, enduring harsh winters with communal roosting for warmth. Red-legged partridges are native to southern France, Spain and northern Italy. They were introduced to Britain as game birds, and there are now resident breeding populations found in rural areas all over England. Their normal habitat is farmland or grassland, although there are some records of this species being found in urban and suburban locations, as I found out when a pair hung out in my garden for several weeks a few years ago. They have a squat, plump body, downward-pointing tail, short wings and sturdy legs on which they walk or run. They are around 32 to 36 centimetres, 13 to 14 inches long, and stand slightly taller than grey partridges. The sexes look alike. Their plumage is a really striking mix of plain colours and complex patterns. The top of the head, back and upper breast is mid-brown, changing to grey tones on the rump and mid-breast. The belly is a rich cinnamon. The creamy beige face has a black line extending from the beak through the eye and around the throat. From the throat to the top of the breast is a black speckled area which looks like a necklace. The sides show repeated scallops of grey feathers with cinnamon and black edging. In the scrubland where they're usually found, this gives excellent camouflage. They have red legs, hence the name, a stout, slightly downward curving red bill and red eye rings. They make quiet clucking contact calls to each other and loud territorial calls which start quietly and build up to a crescendo. Red-legged partridges eat mainly seed and roots, but will take insects too, and they are mostly ground-living birds. From observations of the ones I had in my garden, they spend a large proportion of their time preening or dozing when not eating. When settled and comfortable, they walk at a very slow pace, sometimes pausing before lifting their foot off the ground to complete the next step. But when alarmed, they raise their heads up and become more thin and tall, and they can run very quickly. Relying on their plumage to provide camouflage, they will remain hidden until you're really close, before suddenly bursting into the air from almost under your feet and giving you quite a bit of a shock. Seeing a red-legged partridge at close quarters in my garden gave me the opportunity to observe behaviours you'd rarely witness in the wild. I had noticed a hollow in a patch of soil in one of our neglected flower beds, and from the size I suspected that the partridge had found a favoured spot to dust bathe, just like I've seen house sparrows do. And I was right. I was lucky enough to see one go to the hollow one evening and scratch and peck at the soil, kicking it backwards with its feet and throwing it over its back. When finished, it shook the excess dust out of his feathers, and I felt very privileged to have witnessed that behaviour. The black kite is a medium-sized bird of prey belonging to the same family as eagles and hawks. Despite its name, the black kite's plumage is typically brown with darker streaks, rather than being pure black. The head is often paler with a yellowish or whitish tone, while the underparts are marked by streaky brown plumage. Black kites have a wingspan of up to 160 centimetres, approximately 5 feet, with a body length up to 60 centimetres or 24 inches. The black kite is one of the most numerous and widespread raptors in the world, found across Europe, Asia, Africa and Australia, though it is only a rare visitor to the UK. It is highly adaptable and thrives in a wide range of habitats, from wetlands and forests to grasslands, savannas, agricultural areas, and even cities in some countries. Black kites are opportunistic feeders and have a highly varied diet, primarily scavenging from food, such as carrion, roadkill and discarded scraps. In some regions, black kites have been observed stealing food from other birds, a behaviour known as kleptoparasitism. Unlike many raptor species, black kites are highly social and often roost, migrate and forage in groups. There are a couple of ways to get involved with the casual birder community. I host the monthly Casual Birder Bird Club, with regular attendees from the UK, Germany, Canada and sometimes Australia. We share our recent bird sightings, and every few months we have sessions where we can share our photographs. We also have some upcoming special guest presentations, so if you've thought about joining us, get on our email list to receive the notifications. The link is in the episode notes. And I want to give a shout out to our wonderful casual birder community hosted on the Circle platform. With really friendly and knowledgeable members, it's our space to share trip reports, photos, ask questions of the community, and just hang out. We'd love to have you join us. As always, details are in the episode notes. And I do love to hear what birds you've been seeing, so send me a message on the contact page on my website, casualbirder.com. Making the Casual Birder podcast takes lots of time and requires the purchase of various tools for sound editing and podcast production. If you'd like to support the show, tips are always welcome via ko-fi.com. 5 virtual coffees would cover 1 month's fees of our hosting platform, which delivers the show to all the available podcast listening locations. You can send a one-time only tip or set up monthly support. My goal is to raise enough for 12 months of hosting fees, and your support is gratefully received. Many thanks to my most recent supporter, Andrew Davis. My thanks to Randy Braun for designing the artwork for the show. The theme music is Short Sleeve Shirt by The Drones. Thanks to them for letting me use it. Check out their website at dronesmusic.net. Thank you all for listening, and I hope you'll join me again for another episode of the Casual Birder podcast.